Hello, everyone. I'm Kristian Roberts, Director of Education at the Dallas Opera, and I'm here with my fantastic co-host,
Quo Johnson, Education and Company Culture Manager for the Dallas Opera.
and we're back for yet another episode of Taking the Stage with Kristian
and Quo.
And today we have a very special guest with us today. Ma'am, would you like to tell us who you are?
Hello, I'm Melissa Young, the Artistic Director for Dallas Black Dance Theater.
Yay!
Sorry, we had to take a minute and rejoice. So glad to have you with us today, Melissa.
I'm really excited to be here. I'm sorry, I'm so excited.
No, good. We want that. We need that. Okay, we need that energy. All right. So, of course, I'm so glad that you're here today. I know Quo is certainly glad that you're here today. So glad that you decided to join us today. It's always nice to get to talk to neighbors, but also people we have a history with as well on a personal level. So, without further ado, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. Quo, you want to tell them what we're going to talk about today?
Absolutely. So we are addressing what we've kind of presented in dismantling and replacing. So we want to make sure we dismantle the fallacies. We want to dismantle the limitations that have been accepted. We want to dismantle kind of the false stories that have been presented. And we want to dismantle the idea that the arts cannot connect people in the ways that we truly want them to, right? We always talk about connecting through the arts, but so many organizations still suffer in truly connecting with others. So we want to dismantle those things, and then we want to replace them with truth. We want to replace them with honoring different stories, with honoring different people. And then we want to replace them with examples of organizations that are doing this work, which is why I'm so extremely excited to have Melissa with us. Kind of in my history with Dallas Black Dance Theater, I've had the privilege, the honor, the joy, the blessing to be able to witness and be a part of Dallas Black Dance Theater in various aspects for the past 10 years. And so I know that Dallas Black Dance Theater creates this amazing environment where anyone, whether you've been with them for 20 years, whether you just now walking through the door, you are welcome. You are immediately a part of the DBDT family. So we wanted to make sure that we're presenting leaders of organizations who are doing this work, right? Who are dismantling and replacing this fallacy. And that's what we're talking about today with Melissa.
All right, so we're gonna put you in the hot seat. I'm totally kidding.
I'm ready for it. Let's do it.
All right. So, as it were, this can be a little uncomfortable for some people, because they're like, well, what on earth are they dismantling? What are they talking about replacing? Like, people get a little scared about that. But before we dive into that, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your journey with Dallas Black Dance Theater, from performer to arts administrator. I personally have sort of made that transition to myself. And I met you in 2008 during a performance of Porgy and Bess, where you guys partnered with us on that, if you will recall.
I do remember.
We had a good time with that show. It was an interesting run. So I'm just curious to see what to hear about how you moved from performer to administrator.
And then to director, right? Like artistic director, just top.
Running the whole kit and caboodle.
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Well, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Southern California, but my roots run deep. My heritage is Honduran. I'm the first generation Honduran American in my family. My parents and my siblings were born and raised in Honduras, Central America. So growing up in California with a very diverse surrounding is just what I know. Being, of course, to the eye a Black woman, but being Latina as well, it's something that people have an interesting time wrapping their head around. But nonetheless, I can only be who I am, and I think I'm good at being myself. So I started my dance journey. I trained at home in California, and let's fast forward quite a bit. I trained at the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater School, the Ailey School based in New York City. And I'm a graduate of their certificate program as well as a fellowship student. And in conjunction with my time being at the ALE school, I was one of 5 students selected to do an exchange program in Amsterdam, Holland, which is in the Netherlands. And that was an extraordinary experience. And once I returned back to New York, you know, I said to my friends, look, I'm not a fan of auditions because it's continuous rejection. I couldn't take it. So I said, I'm going to go on this one last audition. If I don't get this job, I'm moving back to California. What was my plan? I had no clue. And ironically, the audition was for Dallas Black Dance Theater. Hadn't heard of the company, didn't know anything about it. The capacity to research was a lot different then than it is now. And based on one of my wonderful mentors, Anna Marie Forsyth, at the ALE school, she's like, oh, Dallas Black Dance Theater, Ann Williams, the founder, she's a great lady. She's like, I think you should go on the audition. Do you want me to call her? No, don't call her. Oh, I'll just get her on the phone. So, you know, we had a brief conversation together with Mrs. Williams, and she said, I look forward to seeing you at the audition. And of course, like most artists, I was not a good auditioner. I mean, I felt like you either wanted a 5'11" Black woman to be a part of what you're doing or not. It wasn't being cocky, but I mean, I fit a specific mold. So I made it to the end, and then finally I got the call asking if I wanted to be a part of Dallas Black Dance Theater. Well, I figured I took a chance to move to New York to continue my professional training. So why not take a chance to move to this strange place, Dallas, Texas. And when I came, I'll never forget, you know, I called my parents up, and of course they were so excited for me in this professional opportunity. And I said, I think I made a mistake. They're like, why? I'm like, Dallas. You should see it. They're like, what about it? And then when my parents came, they're like, oh, sweetheart, we're sorry. Because, you know, growing up in California, Orange County, it's like the mountains, the beach, the landscape is just so unique and extraordinary on so many levels. And then coming to Dallas, I just didn't understand its identity. You know, I felt like it wasn't New York, this bustling city, major city. So I had to kind of navigate my way. And so my mom encouraged me. She said, take 2 years to figure it out. I said, 2 years? I'm like, that's a long time. She said, you need to get accustomed to your surroundings, the city, being in a dance company and touring and all of that. So I just, you know, I'm one of those who listens to her mother because Norma Young always has the best advice. And so I just took everything 1 year at a time. And then as I started to, you know, get on this journey with Dallas Black Dance Theater, I started to give myself mini goals, mile markers along the way. And so, like I said, initially I was like, I'm going to spend 2 years at Dallas Black Dance Theater, then I'm leaving. But then, you know, I said, well, I'm touring quite a bit. The repertoire was fantastic. I loved the company dancers. And I felt like I was growing as a person as well as an artist. So I'm like, why would I leave this situation? So then my completely ridiculous mile markers became things such as, I'm not leaving until we perform at the Kennedy Center. Oh, okay, well, we did. Okay, well, I'm not gonna leave Dallas Black Dance Theater until we go to Africa. I mean, and then we have been to South Africa, to Zimbabwe. And I just started to just create these paths looking for a way to escape, but I quickly learned, like, okay, stop wishing for the most ridiculous sounding thing because it's actually going to come true. Yeah. So then, you know, we were in this very small, maybe not quite conducive for dance building, but it was nice to have a space to be able to rehearse and create this beautiful art every day. And I remember Ann Williams saying to us dancers, you know, one day we're going to have our own building. And we all laughed. We're like, this woman is crazy. We're like, most of our friends who dance in other companies around the country, they don't have their own building. That's never going to happen for us. And then the day she looked across the street from where we are now, I'll never forget. She's like, one day that's going to be our home. And we're like, oh man, we're like, she is just, you know, off her rocker. But as those steps started to, you know, get cemented and the path was laid and the trajectory was positive, we were all looking around at each other like, oh man, things are about to get serious. So along the journey of my desires of touring in different places around the world and being able to work with, different choreographers, that was also part of my goal. I'm not leaving until we work with Donald Byrd or Alonzo King. I mean, I filled in every blank and everything was coming into fruition. And I think why I stayed with it, because I realized that literally anything is possible with a good plan. And Dallas by Dance Theater has been really great at planning and being realistic about looking down the road and just figuring out how do we get from point A to point Z, not point B, because we have to look further along the way. And, in terms of my capacity as a dancer, yes, I came as a dancer. I danced in the company for 11 seasons, and I ended up becoming one of the, soloists, which I love to dance by myself and well as with my colleagues too. But I feel like as an artist, being on stage, for anyone who's been on stage, you can't describe that feeling to anyone. And to have a platform to where you can be free. I feel like when I'm on stage, I'm free. And being on stage is a powerful experience because you are in control of the journey that the audience is going on. Yes, we know the choreography is the expectation, what, the outcome. And you do in a small way want those accolades because of the work that you put behind it. But being on stage for me was more than that. It was a self-discovery. Like every time before the curtain went up, I thought to myself, what am I going to allow this audience to get to know about Melissa today? And then based on the immediate response of their applause or the pin drop silence in their focus and attention to what we were doing, it made me decide, okay, this is what I'm going to give of myself today and to the degree in which I choose to do it. So by the end of all of that, you just really feel it's very rewarding, as many artists would agree with. So after my 11th season, sometimes I feel guilty to say, first world problems, I just needed a break. I needed a break, but I did not want to leave Dallas Black Dance Theater. Even as a child, I was always very curious about my surroundings and, oh, what does he do? And why does he do it? Or what does she do? And why? I have always been that way. And so, I said to Miss Williams, look, I want to take a break because I'm just tired. We're traveling so much. My body wants a break. And she goes, well, I can't hold the position empty, for you until you decide you want to come back. And there aren't a lot of branches on the tree in terms of roles. And we didn't have a rehearsal director at the time. She goes, why don't you consider that? I was like, rehearsal director, I'm not sure about that. I don't know how to do that. She goes, something tells me you'll figure it out. And so by her having that small seed of faith in me and what my abilities could be, when I look back on it, I'm like, wow. I'm like, Miss Williams is really trusting, and apparently she saw that thing in me that I couldn't see in myself. And so,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to say something about that, because I hear so many things in your story and what you're telling and what you're talking about, because here you are saying, I don't know if I could do that. And it took somebody that was in a mentorship position, in a leadership role, founder of this company, looking at you saying, you'll figure it out, and trusting that you would figure it out. That speaks a lot about her faith in you, but it also speaks a lot about her as a leader. And I want to ask you a question, because now that you find yourself in a leadership position, how has that particular conversation influenced the way you lead?
That's a loaded question. It really is. I feel like throughout my different stages of being a part of Dallas Black Dance Theater, so rehearsal director, I then became associate artistic director, which really wasn't like, hey, would you like to do this? It was just more of an acceptance of the responsibilities that were asked of me. And I've always just done the work, put my head down, do the work, never seeking any extraordinary, ballot. I don't need a parade, with confetti to say, oh, great job. I just do it because I want better for myself, which in turn will help the organization. So rehearsal director, I had a moment of where I was the academy director, and then, and so forth. And I think I was able to make easy decisions or logical decisions based on what I witnessed working alongside Mrs. Williams, watching her give opportunities to others, and just trusting, that they're going to create an outcome that's going to benefit everyone. And fun fact, don't think many people know this, Dallas Black Dance Theater being a dance company was not the original intention.
Right.
And so I always my heart starts to like flutter when I think of this story, and oh boy. So Ann Williams, when she was, a young person in her early 20s, she went to see the Dallas Opera, and she went to see them, and they performed Porgy and Bess. And she said, of course, she was blown away by the magnitude of the production, but she said she really sat back and saw that one person was providing an opportunity for the artists, for the technical crew, and for this whole experience. And she wanted to figure out how could she do that with the vehicle of dance. And so, boy, I mean, it just takes guts to do that. And so I love that we're having this conversation now with me being the artistic director. I can't help but get teary and excited and feel like, this full circle is happening. Because for someone to kind of remove themselves from the equation, they're the conductor of the production of, creating all these opportunities and working diligently to ensure the quality, the variety, and the consistency in a place that people can grow and be themselves. I think it's priceless. It really, really is.
And I can hear it in your voice, and you're about to get me going too. And I don't know about Quo, but that's getting to me because I'm a firm believer in mentorship and leadership. And when somebody takes their creation and something they work so hard to dedicate themselves to, and they say, here, I trust you with it now.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes, and I cannot say enough about that. So I hear you and I see you, and Quo, you chomping at the bit, girl. Go ahead, let us have something.
And before Quo chimes in, I just want to say that I think my leadership style is based on what I have observed and what I have personally experienced, and seeing that the way Miss Williams chose to work, when she thought projects should have a green light, when she wanted to pause, when she thought something was not appropriate. Those decisions may not have made sense to me then, but they certainly make so much sense for me now. And it's that subconscious understanding is how I'm able to lead the way I choose to lead, which is with authenticity and having a mindset of inclusivity of everybody who's considered in the big picture.
Absolutely. And then thank you for sharing just all of it. It's so rich and it's so real. And there's so many things in what you just shared, because me having, again, just the privilege and the blessing of knowing Mrs. Williams, and then to know Zanetta Drew, the executive director, and the fact that they're both titans, just legends, and what that means as we take on that work to kind of step into our own kind of titan realms as we do our own work. But what that means when we have leaders who are dedicated to the work, who are dedicated to honoring what their art form can do for other people, right? And honoring how we can serve as a platform to be able to touch others, to be able to inspire others, to be able to empower others, to change lives, change their own lives, change the lives of others, or to touch lives, right? Not so much as change, but just to touch other lives. And even in that, it was the trust that you had in her, and that she made these decisions, and maybe you didn't understand them at the time. And how, as you are now kind of in that position, it's, oh, I understand. And then the trust that you receive from those in the organization now as you're in leadership. I also appreciate that you presented kind of that self-awareness of, I will seek to do these, right? I'll have these little milestones. And then once we blow through those milestones, how we continue to go and how we continue to achieve those goals. Being in observation and kind of being a patron, everything with Dallas Black Dance Theater, I know so often it's like it's that relentlessness of, I will achieve that, right? I will work to get those things done. And then the grace that it takes to get there. Because I do recall even now that building, right, that Mrs. Williams, like, that's going to be the building. And what that means for us as the city of Dallas, because it is now a historical building, right? And what that means for to have the street is named after her, to have these things. And then as you go move into your own, right, into your realm and your reign as Melissa for the organization. So I spoke about how Dallas Black Dance Theater creates these situations or these experiences where you see what someone thought was impossible happen. You see it being done, and you see it being done flawlessly, right? You see the dancers, you see the leadership, you see the communication between the employees, you just see the entire environment. So I wanted to make sure that others had that opportunity to kind of hear from you and how you all create those environments, or the things that you look for when you're looking for new members or new family members, right? For the organization, and what that looks like and how you fold people into that vision.
Sure. Well, I think it's important, regardless of what your role is within an organization, is everyone certainly has to be on the same page. I think as a collective team, yes, we all have our own personal goals of what we want to achieve, but I think that when everyone who is chosen, and I think the choice of working somewhere, it's two-way. Oftentimes, I think as employees, you think that, I have to accept what's being offered, but you don't. But the choice to be somewhere, it's so important. For example, here at Dallas Black Dance, it's not just, yes, the dancers of our company, they are the product, they are the face, of course. But if the administrative side, the staffing, if there's no balance, then the whole formula is not going to work. I think we communicate well with each other. We have moments where we may agree to disagree, or even me as the director, sometimes ideas are proposed, and I'll be candid to say sometimes, like, I will say, I don't think that's a good idea. But then I think to myself, no, stop, pause, look at this from a different lens. How is this new idea or new approach being presented? And then I probably, 9.9 times out of 10, I will retract my initial, negation. So I'm like, okay, yes, I'm on board with that. Now I see, because you have to be open-minded. And I think that's, whether we're dancers or staff, we're open-minded, we're flexible. And because it's the arts, if you're not able to shift and navigate accordingly, then you're always going to be coming to these dead ends. And I think just as people of color, we certainly know how to make something, we know how to make a lot with a little. We're very resourceful, but I think the way we're able to connect with audiences, or in every capacity, whether it's a master class, whether they come to the theater, whether they saw us perform outside in the park, I think because we're always coming to you all and working with heart and honest intention, it's that thing that you cannot fake. It's not something that you can create. It just is.
Yes.
Yes, that's it. Yes, it just is. Oh, amen and hallelujah. That's a word. That's a word right there. It just is. And I have to say, every time I've been into that building or been to any performance that you guys have done, that environment, you can feel it. It's undeniable. And if you cannot feel it, it's because you don't want to. Because it really is, from the time you walk through the door, everybody is kind, everybody is helpful. And then what's put on, that just enhances what is put on stage, something that's so beautiful and so incredible and so diverse. And so I like that. It just, you can't fake it. It just is. It just is. That's real. So, you know, that goes to the question of how to create an inclusive organization. I heard a lot there. I heard you saying that, you know, you have to create the space for everybody. You know, it's not just, you know, and then even Quo was saying that I heard Quo say earlier, the same thing. And I always say that not only does it have to happen externally, what you're presenting to the community, but internally.
Right.
So that there's that balance.
Right.
You know, and then there's other balances between administration and the artist, and it's a very real thing. And as an arts administrator myself, Quo's an arts administrator, we understand both sides. We, you know, all of us on here are performers, you know, but have stage experience, but we also have the business side, you know, the administrative side. So speaking of business side, I want to ask you, you know, what kind of advice would you have for anyone, particularly, you know, people of color? We're people of color, but, you know, who would like a career in dance?
Just artistically, or just like on the physical dance side of things, you mean?
I think we speak to both. I think we talk about artistically and administratively.
Well, I think as far as artistically speaking, of being a dancer, or oftentimes people treat the career of dance as if it's its own like category that doesn't mesh with anything else. I think as if you were going to approach any job that you were seeking, I think you need to do your research first and foremost. Look at the company, you know, keep your eye on what you like about it. And even though you don't have insider information, what do you see that might be a potential flag for you? And figure out how you can respectfully, you know, communicate with someone who works there. So if I'm a dancer who's interested in coming to Dallas Black Dance Theater, in what ways can I, you know, approach a dancer in the company? And of course, we've got the beauty of social media. You know, you can ask questions, and I don't think that anyone is going to turn away one seeking advice. You know, and you have to you could be the most talented person, but you have to look at, could I actually realistically fit into the mold of what I see before me? And oftentimes, you know, in an audition situation, as the three of us know, you know, you might get turned down for the position, not because of your talent, you just may not fit into the scope of what's happening right now. You know, this is a little sidetrack, but to think of, you know, as a dancer, you're heartbroken because you're rejected, but you feel like you're just as talented as existing. But sometimes, well, oftentimes, to be frank, it comes down to the money part. If a 5'2" dancer just left the company and you're 6 feet tall, guess what? Now we have to create new costuming for everything. And then if there is a situation where you're dancing duets with other people, just the proportions are off. And that's not something that we can always readily explain to the person. But these are the things that most aren't willing to share. I don't know why, but you know, I'm here to say, like, these are the things that we think about. Or if we have 12 dancers and we want to add 2 more, but we can't right now, it's a budgetary thing. It's just 2 more dancers, right? It's 2 more people to pay per diem, health insurance, 2 more plane tickets, 2 more hotel rooms. It's all of these things, you know, that make the bigger picture. But paring it back down, I think research is most important. And respectfully, you have to understand the choices, but it's okay to ask, you know, it's okay to follow up and say, you know, can you share, I know you just met me, you just saw me in the audition for 2 or 3 hours, but what feedback can you give me? So that way my next opportunity to audition for you, or even perhaps another company, I just want to succeed and grow from experience. So I think that goes for both sides of the coin. Now, the more that I think about it, even on the arts administrative side, do you want to work for a nonprofit organization? As we know, nonprofit is certainly vastly different than working for corporate America. You know, just as much as we ask artists to be flexible within the situation, do we want every performance to be in houses, venues like the Kennedy Center, like the Winspear Opera House? Yes. Is that always a possibility? No. So you have to just think about, what is this experience offering me, and what can I gain from it? So from a arts administrative position or side of things, you know, do you know about dance? Like, that's important. You can have nonprofit experience, but if you don't have any nonprofit arts experience, the picture is going to end up a little different for you, and you'll be having those struggles. So we really try to find, for Dallas Light Dance, people who are willing to learn, but certainly you have got to bring a lot to the table. And really, because of the work cycle that we have, it's like rapidly moving all the time, even now in this time of quarantine. I mean, it's not even about what can you bring to the table. You almost have to be the table.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
That's real. And that's the nonprofit arts world right there in a nutshell. So you know, we could keep this conversation going forever, and I really would like to. But we're gonna have you back. We need to have you back. Quo's right about that. I think you know, for a lot of us during this time, and you know, during this time, we have a particularly unique time on our hands right now. You know, we talk a little bit about before we, you know, begin this episode. You know, we have to gather. You know, we have to come together to do the work that we do. You know, we do. Dallas Opera puts operas on stage. You know, Dallas Black Dance puts dance on stage. And guess what? It's ensemble work, and it requires a crew, and it requires all these people. But I have to say, you know, and I would ask this question before COVID, you know, pre-COVID, you know, we have a thing here. We talk about things that were happening pre-COVID, things that are happening that are being fully recognized during COVID and being bubbled up and brought up to the surface during COVID. And then what we're going to do, you know, during COVID to see if we can mitigate some of that after. You know, right now we have a time to really examine some things. And I have to ask you as a leader once again, because because again, we talk the talk of, you know, diversity and inclusion and equity and all of this, you know, I'm very careful about how I say this. Cole's laughing at me because, you know, I try to be very metered, but you know, what advice do you have, you know, for other organization leaders or administrators who wish to create an inclusive organization, who want to create that inclusive environment for you know, patrons or new patrons, old patrons, from the minute they walk through the door, for your staff, for your artists? What advice can you give to them?
Most immediately, the thing that popped in my head the moment you asked that or speaking about it is, you have to take risks. Even though an organization might not be familiar with the true depth of what an inclusive environment may be, you're not going to know until you try. And you have to be bold about taking steps forward, because any of our organizations that have been standing for multiple decades, we didn't get to where we are by taking baby steps and walking on eggshells. We all, as leaders, you have to be unapologetically who you are, and you have to believe in your leadership style, your skill set, all of those things. But when it comes, you know, to speaking about inclusion and diversity, just do it. It's the world we live in. We don't live in an environment where we're just one thing. And if you've got 10 people in a room, having one person of other, that's not enough. And it's just, I mean, go to the grocery store, go to the parking lot, go to the park. I mean, we're just one rainbow coalition. That's what we are, and that's what we have to be. And this is in a, I'm going to proceed very carefully, but this is my opinion and I stand strong in my own opinion. The art on stage can be diverse, and we are all making the best efforts to do that. Maybe we're not only just the artists who are on stage. It could be the technical crew we're working with. It could be the lighting designer. It could be the choreographers, the composers, all of that. That's amazing. But your staff has to reflect the diversity as well, because you can't have a sole entity or team of people trying to even dictate or create what a diverse experience is going to be, because you don't have enough voices in the room to be included in the conversation. And having one phone call or one face-to-face meeting with one person of color, that's not going to be the definition of your success.
Woo, woo, woo.
It's an uncomfortable position. It's the fear. We all have the fear of the unknown. I mean, that whether it's, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, or it could be like, do I know enough to sit here and have this interview? But you just have to be willing to take steps forward. And you don't know the outcome unless you try. How many planners, how many notebooks, how many composition books do I have over there on my desk that, have so many ideas? But when are you going to take the ideas and take action?
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Now, see, I don't even have to give a call to action because it sounds like we already gave one. Amen. Okay. Whew. I think this is where we wrap up, folks, because I don't know that there's really anything else to say. Quo, I think it's time for positive notes, because the call of action has been
Positive
given.
Notes.
Okay, so I'm just going to sit
notes.
back and be quiet and let my co-host do her thing.
And can I just, I know we're on, we can't talk forever, but I just really want to say, in terms of taking action, if you, as a leader, I'm talking about management level, if you don't know where to go out to find this diversity, it's okay to reach out to those of us who are what you're seeking. Because we're only better, and we keep talking, how many times have we heard, especially in these last 3 months, we're better together. We're in this together. You could put on the table, are we better together? But you have to be willing to really want to do it. So my door is open, and I'm always here to help, because for my personal mission, I'm here to help people to be the best they can be as an individual in any capacity they can, whatever that means. And just my vehicle happens to be through the vehicle of dance.
Yes. You're so dope.
I mean, I really have nothing. I have nothing to add.
I will add, even in that, thank you, Melissa, for giving that to the leaders. And then, in addition to what Melissa just said, for our leaders, if you do not know where to go, reach out, right? That's kind of some of the positive notes. There are people doing this work. There are organizations doing this work. So reach out, but when you do so, reach out with humility, right? Reach out understanding that you will not dictate what will happen. Reach out understanding that the situations in which we are in now must be dismantled, right? They must be shattered. The way you're used to doing your work kind of will need to change if you're including other people, especially if you're coming to other people seeking answers. So seek answers as a student, right? Seek answers as someone who will eventually kind of walk into this work with others, not ahead of others, not in the place of others, not providing voices to the voiceless. That's another episode. But making sure as we do this work, that we're doing it together. And that requires that some of our roles will have us to move forward, to have us move back, to have us be uncomfortable. We say all the time, kind of lean into that discomfort, and then kind of take comfort at the same time in knowing that others are doing this work and that it's going to get done. Take comfort in knowing that you can start in one place with one expectation and then be open to where it will take you, right? Once you are true to yourself as an artist, as an administrator, as a leader, just you as a person, start somewhere and then be open to where you can go after that.
That's all I have to. I think that's all we have to say today, folks. I think we might have solved all of the world's problems during this time. I'm totally kidding, but we solved enough of them. You know, Melissa, it is always an absolute pleasure, and I thank you for being us today. We both thank you so much for being here today and taking the time to be with us. I think you've given us a lot to think about. There's a lot to digest here, but I think it's very important that we have these conversations. So. Yeah. You know, kudos to you. Kudos
Thank
to
you.
Dallas Black Dance Theater. You know, shout out to Miss Ann Williams, Mrs. Annetta Drew.
Yes.
You know, pioneers and titans, like Quo says. You know, and I'm a firm believer in giving credit where credit is due for people who paved the way for
Yes.
us to be sitting here right now.
That's right.
So it is very much appreciated. So without further ado, folks, we're going to wrap things up. We appreciate you joining us today so much. We want to continue to shout out to Dallas Opera and say thank you so much for providing this platform, TDO Network, and the folks on the grind doing the work there. And with that, we will wrap up today's show. We hope you join us again for another episode. Thank you.
Thank you.